Hello everyone, good evening. I am Jia, and we will be discussing about critical minerals over here. So we have Mr. Mulatelo Racheko over here. He's from South Africa, and he is a South African public affairs and policy practitioner with experience in policy research, stakeholder engagement, and youth-led advocacy across national and international platforms. He has contributed to multiple multilateral processes, including BRICS, G20, Y20, and work spanning across policy analysis, monitoring, and evaluation. Sir, if you would like to introduce yourself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name, as previously mentioned, my name is Molatelo Rachegu. I'm a public affairs and research professional from South Africa, from Johannesburg in South Africa. Um, yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I really thank you for the opportunity to be able to share a bit of my insights, especially how young people can leverage of critical minerals and continue developing the developing world or the global south. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We also have Professor Mansi with us over here. She will be moderating this session on critical minerals. I would like to introduce her before I hand over the stage to her. So, Professor Mansi is an assistant professor at Amity University, and she is a recipient of various prestigious international fellowships and research awards, including the Indo-Pacific Research Fellowship from the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada. She also has been engaged with BRICS summits and institutions as well. Handing over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Jia. Am I audible loud and clear?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for generous introduction, and a very good evening to everyone present here on this lovely evening when we are I mean, it's a national holiday, but still, people are engaging in this discussion, which actually shows the importance of this very much this theme, like the critical mineral, which has actually become a central pillar of the contemporary geopolitics. And as the previous panel or the roundtable was on energy and the green transition, so there also the critical minerals do play a very important, because it links the energy transition, technology, competitiveness, and national security. So I am very delighted to be here, and I look forward to the excellent panel which is lined up from the various BRICS Plus countries. We just heard Mr. Molatelo from South Africa. As I can see, have in the panel Mr. Hino Samuel from Indonesia. From Russia, we have Milena Grigorian. And from India, we have Mr. Harsh Rajput and Mr. Sarthak Ahuja. I hope everybody is there online. So as we discuss the key themes, the key questions, which you guys have already framed, is to find out what are the shared priorities and how we can find ways to reduce reliance on external processing center. And we are here also to find out some of the steps which can help to increase value addition within the BRICS Plus framework. So with that, I think I'm going to hand over to the first speaker. And as I can see, our first speaker is going to be from India, Mr. Harsh Rajput. Over to you, Mr. Harsh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Dr. Mansi. Thank you.
Yeah, so each speaker will have 10 minutes to share their thoughts and views. And once we are done with all the speakers, then we will take the question answer. So Mr. Harsh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mansi, and thank you for coordinating as well. So, my name is Harsh Rajput. As mentioned, I come from India. To again reintroduce myself for our new joinees, I am the director at the Center for Multilateral Strategy and Diplomacy. We work in the field of research and analysis, particularly in international relations and and global affairs. We have our presence across Eurasia, almost across 20 plus countries, and we particularly work with the European stakeholders and the similar topics. Moving on to today's discussion, that is around critical minerals. And as the name kind of comes in, it's there's indeed a lot of discussion about how about China as well in that way. So currently, the entire ecosystem of this minerals processing, particularly, has been a lot more into the hands of China, and that needs to change. Also, for diversification of the kind of entire the portfolio and also the processing, that would also help in to reduce the risk which comes with a singular kind of control as well. I was just going through the some of the data, and it is like almost all of the minerals which we can kind of say as much needed for various like semiconductor industries and all, almost in all of them, whether it be lithium or any other rare earth minerals. It comes out that 50 more than 50%, almost in any of them, more than 50% is somewhat that is found in the BRICS countries already. So that's something which puts at an edge in not an like it makes us much more reliable to then start some kind of this framework which can then help in to contribute in all together and work in a similar direction. So again, to sum up, to kind of move on, the major kind of this what needs to be done is particularly in to build a kind of a similar framework which can then move on to the entire critical minerals as processing, starting from its kind of taking out the ores to till the final processing, is something that can be system which can be established. Like a lot of these minerals are found in Latin American countries and the BRICS countries which are present in that region. What can be done is that the NDB, so to say, again, because when it comes to infrastructure building, there's always a point about who will be financing and on what terms. So all of the major kind of power can be given in hand of the NDB and the sovereign wealth funds. There can also be private players, and here particularly compared to the last discussion which we were doing around the climate and critical minerals, because there's a lot more need of it, and people find it. So it's always like when you look at the topics, it is more upon the need, and then it is look into that direction of the supply. So critical minerals at this point come out to be, as the name suggests, more critical in that way. So a lot of buzz is around that. So more kind of private players are already engaged into that, and via the BRICS framework. Well, the last discussion, I also remembered this one kind of in institution which I had an opportunity to discuss with. They were having a BRICS entrepreneurship framework where they were enabling the companies. I think they reached out to me last year, and we were discussing about the possibilities of expansion for them. Just for me, it was just an advisory kind of discussion with them. So something like that can also be done, where they were particularly coming from Russia. They were a Russian company. So their private players from the BRICS member countries can come together, establish the kind of supplies, not only the supply chains, but the processing power as well. Because at this point, there are two major issues. One is about who would be financing that, since the processes are already well known, but the capital expenditure comes out to be more that needs to be covered. And that for that as well, the NDBs can be a good option. The sovereign wealth funds, which are based in Middle East, can also be a good option. The Islamic funds or the Arabic funds can be a good option to explore, given that a lot of this kind of public private partnerships can be established in particularly Latin American region, that can contribute more towards having those kind of entirely processings in that region itself. That also reduces the cost and makes us diversify our portfolio about who to target in that way. Apart from that, the most amount of work which I believe needs to be done is in the rare earth minerals category, because currently 90% of the entire processing and the stronghold is with China. So again, when it comes to like the others, it's still more 50, 50% of things, but the instant works need to be done in that. And looking at some data, there's a lot of REE, that is rare, REM, so to say, rare earth minerals, a lot more found in Russia as well. And there can be a great possibility of India-Russia cooperation in particularly that. And considering this with bilateral agreements, I think more can be. I think both of the countries, since it's more are core members of the founding group as well, more can be done via the BRICS framework, where they can. It can also help both the countries not only to do it more in a structurized framework, but also invite partners who can join in potentially from the other member states. So that is something which can be done. Also, the similar approaches can be taken whether with Latin American region, so to say. So at least for starting on to the work, a lot more can be done between engaging like joint ventures. It can be two countries, it can be three countries, and then accordingly the move can be taken. For here, if I see regionally, the most amount of kind of if suppose West Asia, since our West Asian coordinator, West Asian researcher who was there in last couldn't be there for speaking up, but I have received a few notes from him. Is that particularly how West Asia can contribute in this is via financing, because they have that potential and they do look forward to this kind of new generation opportunities, as well as critical minerals start to be a necessity and are almost quite used in all of the technologies. So that's where the role of West Asian countries come out to be much more needed, be it UAE or be it Saudi Arabia. So I think that's something which can be done. And I think one last thing which can also be looked forward to is to have something like a mineral logistics corridor, like China already has it again. So again, when we discuss about critical minerals in BRICS kind of umbrella, it can be and it would be difficult, since China already has it controls and it wouldn't like to loosen the grip, so to say. So a lot can and should be done with mutual kind of cooperation and consent between the other member states, and then bringing it under the kind of an umbrella system. What this might help is then it would also create a kind of well positioning of BRICS as a group as well, which can again be more reliable in that way, and can be seen as a potential. Like it also then kind of the other potential member countries who wants to join can look forward to something like this, where more kind of structured approaches are followed, more regulatory frameworks are followed, and yep, I think that's the mostly the amount of things I believe needs to be taken into consideration, and I would love to listen to other speakers' views, and looking forward if there are any questions towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Thank you so much for pointing out what needs to be done. For example, a coordinated effort and trying to find out a framework. One of the important issue which you highlighted is, the need for capital, because rare earth metal or the critical minerals are critical because, it's very expensive to extract them and process them. Right. So that's where NDB can pitch in. And of course, under the BRICS Plus framework, we do have an abundant reserve of these critical mineral in these countries, like you highlighted in Latin America, and we can use the funds from the West Asia and under the NDB to create this mineral logistics corridor which you mentioned, and it can help us to reduce the dependence on China, right? So thanks for highlighting all these practical points. And with India's BRICS presidency, I'm sure the kind of points you are making will resonate at the higher level. Now, with that words, I would like to invite our next speaker from South Africa, Mr. Moletalo. The floor is all yours. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. We can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much once again, Prof. And thank you for the organizing team for organizing this. And I just want to give out perspective, more from an African perspective and a global South, you know. And as you all know, that South Africa is the gateway to Africa. And what we've seen over the years is that there has been a global shift from unilateralism to multilateralism. So that in itself has shown that there's a decline in global leadership structure, and it has increased the relevance of economic and political blocs. So if you look at, for example, the Asian bloc, and then you look at the ECOWAS bloc, so you see more and more countries moving from a bilateral dominance to a bloc-to-bloc sort of cooperation. And that in itself creates a whole new playground for other emerging economies, which is very important within BRICS because BRICS is a block of emerging economies. It creates a very big vacuum which BRICS can come in and fill. And you know, we have also realized that global trade, technology, and energy systems are now shaped through coordinated platforms. And all of these platforms are, as a result of collaboration between these different trading blocks. And when we look at BRICS, we know that BRICS represents plus minus 46% of the global population and plus minus 36% of the global GDP as when we look at that. And why does this moment matter? It matters because global supply chains are undergoing realignment. And with that being said, it means that countries now start working on alternative markets in order to diversify their imports and their exports to other countries for their critical minerals or their rare earth minerals. And there has been an acceleration of the global energy, right? Global energy transition. So what that means basically is that we are now seeing the world moving into what we call here in South Africa the just energy transition. And that shows that the future is green. And there is now a rise in competition for access to those rare earth minerals. You know, Africa has 85% of manganese and it has 80% platinum group metal and also has 65% of cobalt reserve. So if you know how important those or strategic those minerals are, you would understand why Africa is always on the agenda whenever we have summits and forums that speak about economic development. Those summits and economic, those summits and forums basically speak about how can Africa be allowed access to leverage off of the critical minerals. And it's quite important for us to look at it because when you realize how much Africa indirectly contributes towards the world, you will then ask yourself the question of why is Africa still so underdeveloped when that is the case? We in Africa need more industrialization. We need more resources in terms of how to then produce rather than being the consumer, right? And that will then allow us to not give away, if I can use those words, give away our critical minerals and then buy them back at exorbitant prices. So that will help the African economy and Africa develop it as a whole. So South Africa, as a case study, when you look at it, we've got a very high unemployment rate, right? 6 out of 10 young people are unemployed. And South Africa is very important in the African continent. The key logistics and trade gateways on the African continent are contained in South Africa. And we also have the advanced financial and regulatory systems. So our systems, our financial systems in Africa are the strongest. And we are then able to, we are then able to trade in a better way. So that it brings me to the next point. The core structural challenge that we are then seeing is that um, there needs to be strong policy frameworks across BRICS countries, right? Because we know that BRICS is a block of emerging economies. However, how do we then say that BRICS can now trade in a way that is an alternative to the Western way of trading, if I can put it that way? Because BRICS in itself, if you look at all these countries, they have got strength in different aspects of the economy, right? For example, if you look at India, you see the technology that they're advanced. India and Russia is very advanced in technology, as well as China. And China's got a huge population, just like India. And then with South Africa, you look at South Africa, you see that, okay, South Africa is a big, big player within the minerals space. So how do we then get all these countries to become equal trading partners and not see each other as just a simple trade-off, right? Because what I've realized is that there is a weak execution and delivery capacity when it comes to these countries having to collaborate with one another. And there is a fragmented implementation with regards to the partnership. So that then leads us to the next point of where the youth then comes into this conversation. Africa has got the youngest population, again, and these young people are innovative in a way that they will be able to start enterprise and start digital sectors that will then allow us as Africa within the BRICS community to allow us to leverage off of our critical minerals to ensure that we continue developing our continent, because our continent as it stands is very underdeveloped. And the MSME is about 60% of BRICS employment. So that just shows us that young people are ready and young people have started businesses. There are businesses right across the BRICS block where critical minerals are being discussed, where critical minerals are being put on the agenda. So how do we then incorporate more young people and teach and educate more young people to then form part of these critical minerals? Because we know the conventional go to school, go to university and get your degree and move on to life. But how do we then allow people who are not as skilled in theory to take advantage of this position that we find ourselves in, where critical minerals are so important in the conversation? So when you look at the next point that I want to make is that South Africa in itself, in 2025, when we hosted the G20 summit, the G20 summit was hosted under themes that spoke about sustainability and collaboration and equality, right? So those core things that were discussed should then be able to be implemented. And like I said, Africa should not be treated as a begging bowl, right? Africa should now then come to the forefront because of the strength of the minerals that we have. We should now come to the forefront and ensure that we then take up the space that is made for us to leverage of our critical minerals. And then when you look at the digital governance and youth participation within these spaces, you will see that there is a high youth access, or young people have a lot of access across the BRICS countries with regards to digital access. But there's low participation. And South Africa, if I can just give you another stat, we've got 70% of young people who have mobile internet access. So how do we then use that in order to amplify the voice of Africans into BRICS conversation? And then the extraction of our critical minerals is based on economic models, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean that when, for example, if a country wants to come and extract minerals within South Africa, let's say manganese, for example, we have our own policies and our own laws that they need to abide by before they can extract these minerals. Let me make an example. For example, we had a situation with Elon Musk wanting to come and install Starlink in South Africa, and they want to comply with our local law. So those local laws and those policies are here to safeguard South Africa against potential exploitation of a country or an individual or a business coming in and just extracting our minerals and South Africa not benefiting anything from it, right? And it goes to my next point to say that a lot of young people are excluded from mineral linked value chains, right? Young people are not exposed into that space. So, what are my propositions for this what I've just said? I think the BRICS bloc should then have a youth economic corridor, right? Where coordinated youth will then integrate the mechanisms of BRICS to come up with a framework that will then allow and align SMEs with these critical mineral sector, because our critical mineral sector in South Africa is quite big. However, we need more exposure and more young people taking part of it. And it needs to be a cross-border participation, right? It needs to happen in 2 or 3 BRICS states, BRICS countries, where it then can be piloted, and then we can see how we can then leverage of that. So what type of implementation framework are we looking at? We're looking at government policy and regulation, private sector demand and investments, youth networks as delivery partners, because there's a lot of youth networks that do these kind of capacity buildings where they teach young people about South Africa's critical minerals and how South Africans can get involved in safeguarding those kind of sectors. And it also goes to multilateral coordination and oversight. And how will we then measure and keep the framework to account? So when you create jobs for you automatically grow. And the cross-border participation rate needs to be high. And the policies that we also take, it needs to be scalable, and it needs to be something that is sustainable, that would outlive the generation. And then the key risks, as I'm finalizing, the key risks that we might come to when it comes to this is that there might be fragmentation of initiatives, and there might also be over politicization of youth programs. And there's also a short-term unsustainable funding model that can come into play. And also it speaks about the weak stakeholder coordination. And then in terms of multilateralism in BRICS, multipolar global order is beginning to become a norm now. And the collective action will then get rid of unilateral effort. So BRICS can really shape the global economic norms if we then become more intentional about everyone being an equal partner and not just coming to bring or Africa being a consumer rather than an equal partner on the groups. So in short, what I just wanted to say is we need more youth embedded in economic systems, and we need an increased value in local retention as well as coordinated delivery across the BRICS plus countries, as well as scalable youth participation. Young people must take their mantle and run with it. So, and the way forward would also be we need to, like I said, 2 to 3 countries, pilot the initiatives and design, coordinate the existing platforms, and then measure the outcomes as well as the adaptability of the program. So what we do here at the African Youth Advisory Network is that then we do youth mapping and ecosystems analysis, we do stakeholder coordination, and we do monitoring, reporting, and learning systems. And we also implement readiness support. So we are also ready and we are available for those capacity building workshops where we want to teach young people about how do we then leverage off of our critical minerals and rare earth minerals. So yeah, that's all from my side, from South Africa's side, as well as the African Youth Advisory Network. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Molatalo. I was listening to you very carefully, and you highlighted all those important aspects, be it the geopolitical crisis which we are in right now, and how Africa has been, at the back seat despite being so rich in resources. So you did highlight some of the very practical step forward, like the youth engagement. And I mean, this is the importance of having youth participating in such deliberations, because you know what are the things which are lacking and what should be incorporated in those mechanisms. So I really agree with you when you say that BRICS should come forward and work towards a coordinated effort. There must be some accountability. There must be the capacity building, and it has to be an equal partnership. The countries should engage with Africa not just from the buyer-seller syndrome, but more like a equal partner in the development and growth. So very good points which you raised, and with that, I would like to invite our next speaker from Indonesia, the newest member of the BRICS family. Over to you, Samuel.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry. Hello. My name is Hino Samuel Jose. I'm from Indonesia. Although I'm here from Indonesia, I want to first of all thank every participants for their contribution, and the speakers as well for highlighting some foundational aspects and substance of today's discussion. It was a last-minute invitation. Thank you, Global Eye Intelligence, for bringing me here. So I actually prepare a slide, if I may, just a bit of slide just to accompany my presentation, because sometimes when I explain things without PPT, I will go on to a lot of things and it will not be that structured. So yeah, I'll just create PPT for the sake of all of us. So I hope it's visible. Yes,
yeah, we can see you. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Hino Samuel Jose from Indonesia, the newest family of the BRICS countries. I was in Brazil also earlier this year. Not earlier this year, last year in 2025, I was in Brazil in June, along with the delegation from the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I attended both the BRICS Youth Summit and the BRICS Youth Ministers meeting. And by profession, I'm also a government official. I have tendered my resignation in my old institution, and I'm currently about to move to a new government institution. Hopefully, if everything goes well by March, I'm already in the new ministry. I'm also serving in my capacity as thematic focal point of green economy and resources at the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. UNEP is the United Nations Environment Program. It has a major group and stakeholder mechanism. It has 9 major groups. One of them is Children and Youth, and I'm holding a position there to coordinate green economy and resources, natural resources policy advocacy and strategic engagements. So yes, I want to begin with my country. I will not be explaining. I was about to plan, to create a PPT of, explaining BRICS minerals policies but I'm afraid that I might get the data wrong, especially some data, some reports are actually made in local language to the point where I'm afraid that I will not be making an accurate presentation. For example, of India, maybe you guys have English materials. I read about it earlier today, but I think other countries it's all in local language, so I'm not really confident on that. So I'll just focus on Indonesia at the moment. Indonesia is, of course, is a culturally and resourcefully and economically rich and diverse countries with strong and effort to grow. We have a lot of natural resources according, as you can see on my slide. I think we are the largest nickel reserve in the world, and we are also the second largest tin producers, the sixth largest bauxite producers, and the seventh largest copper producer in the world. When I say producer, it's also because we have a tremendous natural resource reserve in our country across islands in Indonesia. Particularly, if you guys see in the screen here, I don't know whether you guys can see my mouse cursor or not, but this island, Sulawesi, and this island, Maluku Island, it has a lot of critical minerals reserve. That's why most of the mining, critical minerals mining industries are concentrated on those islands. And I think in regards of our rich natural resources and our large mineral reserve, we do have a lot of tremendous renewable energy potential in our country right now. I think we all know that in renewable energy, we have several renewable energy sources, for example, water, hydropower, or solar, yeah, from the sun, or and then we have also wind, yeah, from but Indonesia, in terms of Indonesia, the most popular renewable energy source is actually solar, yeah, like geothermal, things like that, as well as hydropower. And right now the government, in terms of hydropower, the government right now is already embedding the hydrogen as part of the new renewable energy roadmap issued by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources earlier this year. Sorry, last year. I looks like I'm still in 2025, so that's why I kept mentioning wrong year. Yeah, and then the strategic value, of course, because we are located in a very strategic position. On our north, we have the South China Sea, Pacific Ocean. On our south, we have the Indian Ocean. We are also neighbor with India directly. We share a maritime border with India, with the Andaman Islands, Andaman Island groups. And then also we are connected with Australia. We're connected with China. We're connected with the ASEAN region, with the mainland Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Vietnam, and then Myanmar. Laos is a landlocked country. I will not name Laos for the sake of the discussion. And then we are also connected with other strategic Southeast Asian countries like Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore. And then I think this location where we are located in major sea lanes connecting East Asia, South Asia, and Oceania made it very imperative for us, the government, to achieve a long-term status to be a developed country. And next slide is why critical minerals does matter. First of all, of course, critical minerals are part of the global efforts to mitigate the following issues. As you guys can see on the left side of the screen, energy insecurity and dependence. I think previous speaker from South Africa and India already mentioned about that. And then also critical minerals are actually very useful for artificial intelligence, because we all know that AI data centers operate on energy, and then most of the energy supply, aside from being supplied by fossil fuel energy, actually, some data centers also utilize storage, battery storage, and when you want to when you want to produce a batteries, when you want to produce batteries, you need critical minerals, lithium, for example. And then also critical minerals are important to tackle climate change, because countries like Indonesia, for instance, and I think India and other BRICS countries, for example, let me name China, Indonesia, China, especially both of our countries, Indonesia and China, we cooperated a lot on energy transition projects, especially pertaining to electric vehicles. And then, of course, critical minerals is the new oil. I know fossil oil is still important, but I think critical minerals is now the new oil, because it is a tool of geopolitics. It is a tool of economic competition. It is a tool even to fragment, to create an economic fragmentation in our global system. So it poses both opportunities and challenges. And then for Indonesia, in my country, in my experience also dealing with critical minerals in terms of the advocacy, also in my government work experience, I think we have, for the sake of our explanation today in this slide, I would like to I would like to classify it by three categories. First, in the policy strategy level. The policy strategy level, we use bilateral investment cooperation deliverables to substantiate our cooperation with other friendly countries on critical minerals. We ask them to we ask them to invest in Indonesia, and we invite their companies to establish factories in our country. And then when they're operating their own factory here, of course, they have to utilize the local labor. And then we have also a thing called local content requirement. In terms of local content requirement, it means that, for example, the manufacturing technology or at least parts of the supply chain must utilize Indonesia locally produced products. And then, so that's the bilateral investment strategy, bilateral investment cooperation strategy. Another strategy in terms of the policy strategy is of course, strategy to enhance national competitiveness. For instance, we are implementing various regulations to cut back taxes, to cut back tax on electric vehicles, for example. So every electric vehicles produced in Indonesia and electric vehicles imported within the quota to Indonesia will be cheaper because we provide them with the tax holiday. We provide the companies with tax holidays, so it's not expensive for them to sell the cars here in Indonesia. And in fact, for instance, in Jakarta, we have a very strict we call it the odd and even policy. So plate number. So during the odd dates, only fossil fuel cars with odd number of the plate can passes. And then on even dates, only cars with even plate number can passes on some major roads in Jakarta, the capital city. That's another incentive. So electric vehicles can move freely without being bound to the odd and even plate restriction policy. And also, I think I have another instrument that I would like to explain in the upcoming slide, but I would like to move forward now. So aside from enhancing national competitiveness and then promoting bilateral investment cooperation, we synergize those efforts to, of course, create flagship projects here in the operational level, and then establish new projects to increase investment and trade. The idea is, of course, it has to be produced in Indonesia, and then you can export that end product to other countries, to abroad, So that's why it echoes the previous speakers' statements that we need to add more value to our ecosystem of the critical minerals. The industry needs to be more competitive, so it receive more foreign investment. And then, but of course, in my view, it has to be very sustainable in terms of the environment sustainability, as well as the financial sustainability. And then last thing is the objective and the means of improvements and the means of implementation, if I can say it that way also. We need to do high quality industrialization. And of course, the high quality industrialization must be downstream oriented. And then it must focus on developing talents. So not only that our people are working in the mining or within the supply chain ecosystem, but also we are encouraging the talents to work on the strategic level of this industry, for example, in the leadership position. And we are encouraging more Indonesians to, to employ more Indonesians and establish Indonesian led products on nickel derivative deriving from the nickel, for example, battery, and then other kinds of products. And then, of course, we need joint research and development collaboration. And we need strong connectivity, logistical connectivity, infrastructure connectivity, as well as strengthening people-to-people relation. Because without close people-to-people relation, it will not be warm enough for us to conduct business. And without a warm environment of conducting business, there won't be any substantial progress. So I think that goes both ways also, with the countries that receive investment and the countries who wants to invest in another country on critical minerals. And then this is why Indonesia will continue to transform its economic system by shifting from raw materials to high value added industries. This is the slide where I will not explain numbers, but as you guys can see, although it was slow at the beginning, but because in 2019 we imposed the president of Indonesia imposed the nickel ore export ban, which resulted in substantial decrease of raw material export and then substantial increase on added value export. So the raw materials are now processed only in Indonesia, so no raw materials can be exported out, like in nickel. And then, of course, the government is trying to also enhance its smelting capacity of the nickel to the point where last year in 2025, we achieved 2.5 million of nickel smelting capacity. And but however, as we know here, critical minerals now is becoming more sexy, but at the same time also challenged by new market dynamics. Downstream is indeed successful. Downstreaming of critical minerals in Indonesia is proven successfully, transforming our economy. But however, we need to anticipate new emerging challenges. For example, last year we noticed slowing market demand on critical minerals and then rising offer supply globally, where Indonesia itself, we did a lot of offer supply to the point where the government earlier this year adjust the national mining work plan and expenditure to respond to the upstream side in early 2026. So now we handle the upstream measure. So in the beginning, we are now limiting, in the beginning of this year, we are now limiting producers of nickel in Indonesia to limit their production output. And then we are now implementing a new moratorium. So there will be no more new nickel smelter permit being issued by the government. This is implemented by the government regulation number 28 of 2025 because we see oversupply. So we should not expand more mining sites. We should hold at the moment, maintaining the existing production capacity without increasing and worsening the oversupply. But we see noticeable progress in Indonesia. For example, we are now using HPAL technology to process and to produce our critical minerals in terms of nickel, the high pressure acid leach HPAL. It replaces the old conventional rotary kiln electric furnace, RCAF. So HPAL use high pressure acid to process low grade limonite ore into MHP for EV batteries. Meanwhile, the old one, the RCAF, uses high heat smelting for high grade saprolite or to produce ferronickel or NPI for stainless steel. RCAF is more cheaper, but it's more energy intensive. So the carbon emission is substantially and skyrocketingly high. And then while HPAL has higher capital costs, it is more expensive to use, but it produces essential materials and much more efficient. So yeah, I think previously someone already explained from the nickel ore to the sulfate to the components of the chemical and then the battery cells, and then to the battery, to the cathodes, anodes, and then we have the electric vehicles being produced, and then aside from that, we have the charging now. Now charging infrastructure is another sexy business in the country, and then at the end of the day, from the leftover of those batteries, we recycle the battery, of course, to minimize environmental footprint and waste of batteries that are no longer usable. So we recycle them to new battery, new products. This is the government policy that allow EV companies to import, build up, or knock down four-wheeler electric vehicle cars. In return, investor must commit on their pledge. So as the point is here, previously we asked everyone to invest and establish a EV factory in Indonesia, but we realized sometimes being too strict on this is not good either. So that's why the government must allow the EV companies to at least import the either knock down or build up EV cars from abroad. For example, Chinese companies are now able to import, like, for example, Wuling cars from China to Indonesia. But in return, they must invest, and the government will ask the company to uh, provide sufficient guarantee in terms in the form of cash. So there needs to be a bank guarantee, uh, like, for example, billions of rupiah or trillions, I don't know, depending on the company uh, 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 production capacity, as well as there's this technical formula calculation that I will not explain because I'm not in the capacity to explain also, but they have the thing to calculate, and then they come up with the formula. Okay, you need to give this amount of money to our government, put it in this bank, and then we will freeze the money so you can import your cars from abroad, and then feel free to import, and then uh, you will use this money as your guarantee, as your promise to build more factories in Indonesia, to create more jobs. And then once they achieve it, we will open the money again. We will give them the money, the guarantee money back. It attracts further investment for four-wheelers through 0% import tariff, providing legal basis for the government to borne the luxury tax of the imported four-wheelers electric vehicles that we allow, and we push further increase of the local content. Because here's the thing, sometimes, like, why this policy exists, because sometimes there are cars that cannot be produced, like using components made in Indonesia. That's why they need to import some of the components from China or from other countries and then assemble it in Indonesia. And we realize, for example, like certain types of cars, we simply have no ingredients to make it in Indonesia. So as you know, we enforce local content, but yeah, how can we give way for them to to be more relaxed, and we give them business certainty that they are able to innovate their product is by allowing this import. So we can allow them to import new cars, new type of cars that cannot be produced here, and then yeah, in return you need to establish more factories. So that's a simple way. I hope I am explaining it better. And then this is the thing that I have been doing also since 2024. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres established the Critical Energy Transition Minerals panel, a UN's SGCETM panel, that's how I call it in short, with three objectives as stated in the screen: to support just and equitable transition to renewable energy, to ensure countries and local communities are fully benefiting from this action of the industrialization of the energy transition field, and then to strengthen international cooperation. As you guys can see, I was attending the meeting there. That's my name in the Zoom. I was one of the youth advisory group to the UN SecGen panel. I was one of the member of the youth advisory group. So we were advising them when it comes whether they listen or not. Well, I hope they listen, because I've been taking my time to, I was doing full-time job, and then I was doing this side job. So there were so many things to do. So yeah, but I hope we as youth have been advocating our demands clearly, not only for just and fair industry of renewable energy, but also a much more sustainable critical minerals extraction. The panel produced a report. These are the results of the panel work. They produced 7 principles, and I still remember back then it takes us like almost a dozen of discussion in Zoom to come up with these 7 principles. And then there were so many back and forth, so many heated debates as well. And we come up with this language that we can compromise, that we can agree together in consensus. So this is the 7 principles. I will not be explaining one by one. And then this is the actionable recommendation. So aside from the principles, we have the actionable recommendation. The panel produced some actionable recommendation. First, to embed and maintain the guiding principles across the whole critical minerals value chain. Second, to establish the United Nations high-level advisory group to accelerate greater benefit sharing, value addition, downstreaming, and economic diversification. And third, to establish a mechanism to enhance global traceability and transparency, as well as accountability along the entire mineral value chain. And then we establish also, the panel proposed to establish a global mining legacy fund. So there will be a funding mechanism to promote intergenerational equity and to address legacy issues of critical minerals, for example, like abandoned mines, and then, to assist closure of mines, and then, to establish financial support for mine closure and rehabilitation of the environment. So that's the Global Mining Legacy Fund. And then the next one is initiative to empower artisanal and small scale miners, because we know that when it comes to critical minerals, it's not only the formal industries, it's not only the big players, but also we have the informal miners, those who are mining the critical minerals, sometimes illegally, of course, and informally. We need to empower them, embrace them to our system, and foster sustainable development and human rights for all, for them, for the environment, for the local community. So, because illegal mining has been a very rampant issue, not only in Indonesia, I think across BRICS countries as well. And there needs to be equitable targets and timelines for the implementation of material efficiency. So when it comes to extracting the minerals, there needs to be material efficiency. So we minimize the environmental footprint, promote circular economy. The circular economy must promote just transition at the end of the day. That's what we push also as youth back then. And it must be done across the entire life cycle. So from the beginning until the end, the whole round circular life cycle of critical minerals. And then the next thing, the follow-up of the panel report, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, last year in December. I almost sacrificed my Christmas holiday for this thing, and I kind of like regret it, but I'm happy that I was able to engage there. I was in Nairobi, Kenya for the 7th United Nations Environmental Assembly, where I was responsible to also escort the negotiation for the minerals resolution in the United Nations Environmental Assembly. US wasn't there. US was absent from the meeting. And then on the last day of the plenary, they come to the meeting room, and then they barge in, and then like they raise their placards. They want to speak, take the floor in the plenary. And then suddenly they say, United States disassociate themselves with all resolutions of the United Nations Environmental Assembly. So they don't want any, they don't want to be attached and committed, or they don't want to be, following the implementation of the resolutions of the United Nations Environmental Assembly, obviously because of the recent administration policy. But good news is Trump recently issued 60 withdrawal, right? Across those 60 withdrawal, thankfully UNEP is not part of the list. So I can think that I think Trump still think that UNEP is still important. So, but they are not participating actively, but they still need to be there. So in UNEA, in Nairobi, they launched the United Nations CETM Task Force, initiated by the UN Secretary General. It involves 3 UN agencies: UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, to handle the trade and investment aspect of critical minerals; UNEP to handle the environmental aspect of the critical minerals, the United Nations Environment Program, obviously. And then the third one is UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, is responsible for the development planning and development aspect of critical minerals. So we have the trade and investment covered, the environment sustainability covered, and then the development aspect covered. The vision is clear, as guided as by the UN SecGen directive, uh, to ensure that for developing countries, critical minerals are a critical opportunity to create jobs, diversify economies, and dramatically boost revenues, but only if they are managed properly. Then the race to net zero cannot be trampled over the poor, and the renewables revolution is happening, but we must guide it towards justice. So just energy transition. And then this was proof that I was there. So I'm not making it up. I hope, yeah. I look stressed there because I stay up until 2 a.m. every day and wake up at 6 a.m. again. So I only slept for 5 hours for 2 weeks in Nairobi in Kenya. Didn't get the chance to do the safari. I was so sad. But yeah, what we tried to push also, back then there was this minerals resolution in UNEP. Minerals resolution. At first, UNEP wants to establish a working group to discuss options and instruments for the future governance of global critical minerals. They envision that the working group should come up with at least an international treaty on critical minerals. That was tabled. The draft resolution with that provision was tabled. And as you expect, it was heavily discussed. When I say heavily, it means back and forth, a lot of debates, a lot of diplomatic breakdown. Countries like, I don't want to name them, but Middle Eastern countries and some South, Middle Eastern countries are quite resistant to the idea of having the global treaty, international treaty on critical minerals. And then, but the European countries, they want a more ambitious resolution. They don't want the resolution to just go down in vain. So the middle way, they finally settled that the resolution should establish dialogue, another dialogue, series of events. That's why people has been criticizing UN of being useless. That's why, because the negotiation is happening, it was tense. So the middle way, they agree that they should just have a dialogue on critical minerals, on the environmental impact of critical minerals like pollution, tailings, the waste, yeah. But they don't want any dialogue on creating a new global treaty on critical minerals. We almost have global candidate of global treaty on critical minerals, but the countries failed to do that, so they just now settle in the bare minimum, which is to create dialogue. That's it. And then another concept, last concept I would like to introduce here for BRICS is basically decoupling. Why this matter? Because I think when we attach critical minerals to our well-being too much, it will result on increasing critical minerals extraction. And increasing critical minerals extraction means more environmental impact, more environmental degradation, more breaches to the planetary boundaries. So what we propose in UNEP also, through the IRP, International Resource Panel, we want to decouple the resource use of critical minerals and then the economic activity of critical minerals to increase well-being of the people and to lessen the environmental pressure. Again, this is just a concept that is not negotiated within among the governments, but it was introduced by the International Resource Panel by a bunch of scientists. But again, this concept is not totally embraced by all countries globally. Even almost all BRICS countries, I don't think they have made themselves familiar with this concept of decoupling. So yeah. But of course, the threat is, regardless of environmental sustainability issue, we have a threat here, middle income trap. That's why we need to promote high quality industrialization of the critical minerals to prevent middle income trap. We can do that through technology transfer. So BRICS must promote technology transfer. We must promote regulatory support. African countries need to work on this to promote the good governance of critical mineral policies. Indonesia also need to work more on this. And then combating corruption on critical minerals. And then international cooperation, of course, international cooperation in the sense that BRICS countries, we must trust, we must trust each other. If I can put it clearly, I'm not Chinese, by the way, I'm Indonesian, but I want to say BRICS among Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, Indonesia, Iran, and others, we cannot have this integration among ourselves. There can, I mean, I reckon, for example, India have a certain elevation of conflict with China. I get it, but what I'm saying is when it comes to BRICS, we must be solid. We must be synergizing to each other and promoting our own competitiveness while at the same time promoting mutual cooperation that benefit one another, mutual benefits. We need to be more solid because otherwise BRICS will not work if fragmentation continue to happen. And then, of course, we need a hybrid master degree program. Why I propose this? Because we need more talented human resource, not only good in academic practice, but also in practical practice, in the industrial practice. That's why the master degree should combine both theory and internship on critical minerals industry practically. And then lastly, to close, sorry. And
Samuel,
then
sorry to
industrial
interrupt you,
vocational
Samuel.
training.
But we have two speakers lined up. It's a very interesting presentation,
Yes.
but I would request you to wrap up, please.
Okay, sure. I will wrap up with this closing slides. That's why BRICS need to engage in negotiation process actively and then formulate the BRICS statement or declaration on critical minerals as the normative guidance because we have none at the moment, and establish financing facility through the new development bank, and then establish the BRICS paradigm, of course, because BRICS need to agree first what we should do with our critical minerals. How should we manage the environmental aspect of the critical minerals, the trade investment aspect, and the development aspect? To answer the question on benefit sharing, how can we make sure that the benefits of this industrialization of the critical minerals can benefit all people in all level of economy, address the informal sector in critical minerals, promote just transition and climate action, and the minerals extraction that is restrained accountably, maintaining trade and investment while respecting planetary health and boundaries. And then, of course, establishing the indicators. Aside from GDP indicators, we need also indicators beyond GDP because we need to promote social justice at the end of the day. If not, we'll just be another capitalist group promoting unsustainable extraction of critical minerals that are too capitalistic in a sense, too corporate centric and not people centered. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. The presentation was excellent, and we actually lost track of time, right? So I am sure that some of the framework which you have mentioned, or which you have recommended to UNEP, can be actually taken up, and BRICS can be implemented for the BRICS Plus also. I'm sure the organizers are keeping a tab of all these recommendations, and when they come forward with the policy recommendations, some of the points which you highlighted can be incorporated. So thank you very much. And now we have our next speaker from India, Mr. Sarthak. Are you there?
Hi, Mansi,
Yeah,
I'm there. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, the BRICS Task Force team, for inviting me for the speakership opportunity. So, a little about me. I'm Sarthak Ahuja. I'm an intelligence analyst at Vodafone Intelligence Solutions, short for Voice. And I am also a young fellow for the Yerevan Dialogue. I represented India at the Yerevan Dialogue 2025 in Armenia. And I have also delivered a guest lecture at Hindu College, Delhi University, on economic impacts of geopolitics. So coming to the conference, I will not take much time. I will be on point. So starting with, I want to thank my previous panelists for amazing presentations and amazing viewpoints. I have noted them down and included in my own um, write-up. So starting with, so as we know that BRICS grouping is sitting at a catbird seat as the world's wealthiest nations, as the world's wealthiest nations are spending billions of dollars to transition their economics away from fossil fuels. But we as BRICS nations are sitting on a bed of critical minerals. So BRICS nations occupy the dominant position in both production and availability of critical raw minerals. So, as we all know, China is the world's top producer of 16 minerals and elements, including lithium and cobalt, which are essential for electric batteries that we use in our EVs and other clean energy technologies. Other than that, we have yttrium, gallium, magnesium, tungsten, which China has a dominant position on. And not to miss Indonesia's nickel, which is Indonesia's what you can say, Indonesia's oil, as Samuel mentioned. But the 90% of refineries and production are in the hands of China. Sorry to say that, and that is the harsh reality of Indonesian market. Now, coming to Brazil, Brazil produces 10% of world's graphite, which is a critical element in the lithium-ion batteries, that essential in EV batteries again. And South Africa and Russia collectively produce 83% of world's platinum. Though platinum technologies and platinum batteries, which are called the next generation batteries, are still producing. We are still in the line of production, but they will play a very critical role later. As my speaker, my fellow panelist from South Africa mentioned about the rich resources in South Africa. One of them is platinum, but we still have to see how they play out in the next generation batteries, right? And how they can replace lithium ion batteries, because they have these next generation batteries and platinum have a really long lifetime. So again, my country, India, which is a major producer of rare earth minerals like barite, chromium, and titanium, though not very essential, but essential in production and in factories. So collectively, the BRICS Plus grouping is home to around 72% of world's rare earth minerals, 75% of manganese, 50% of graphite, 20% of nickel, and 10% of copper. And this data is verified. It's till I guess December 2025, as per my latest research. So, but the main issue that BRICS faces is that we dig a lot, we mine a lot, we explore a lot, we lease a lot, but we don't have the capacity of technological supremacy. We 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 lack processing and refining factories. So what is the solution to that? My solution is very simple. A joint venture, as Harsh mentioned, but I would like to expand it much more. So a joint venture where we have three groupings: resource-rich countries, technology-rich countries, and capital-producing countries. Let's take an example. A resource-rich country can be Indonesia or Brazil. A technology-rich country can be China or Russia. Russia, let's say for platinum, but mostly China. Then you have capital producing countries, which can be India, South Africa, or the NDP, though NDP also needs funding, which will definitely come from the BRICS countries. But as an example, India. So if we have this model of three side groupings of resource-rich countries, technology-rich countries, and capital-producing countries, there can be a model where no single country needs to do everything together, but BRICS can cover the full chain. There is also a model which I was thinking of, which is a hypothetical model, but obviously it's a panel, so it's up for discussion. It's called the hub and spoke model, where there is a hub and there are providers of critical raw material, and it can be regional hubs. For example, China, India, and China. Oh, sorry, China, India, and Indonesia are it fits in the same scenario, right? So critical minerals, Indonesia's exist as a refining capacity that China has built. So raw materials from China and raw materials from India can come to Indonesia and they can be refined there. So that can be spokes, the Indonesia, China and India, and Indonesia can be the hub. So hub and spoke model can be refined. Same with our partners in the Middle East and same with our partners in the Latin American region. So coming to my next point, if we have to shortlist some minerals, because there are so many minerals, there are rare earth minerals and there is critical minerals. Rare earth minerals are 17 and there is critical minerals, which depends on the government categorization. So if you want to focus, if India wants to focus on critical minerals in its presidency, it should be again three tier. One is the battery value chain, which includes lithium, nickel, and graphite. Then there is high tech and defense application, which are the 17 rare earth minerals. Then there is a grid and electrification backbone, which is totally dependent on copper, gold. So that is how these three can play out. These three can be prioritized. And if BRICS controls the refining, it controls the choke points, which my fellow speaker from South Africa mentioned about the whole global diplomacy and the global choke points that are being placed in the world right now by the US and China, that the game has been playing. I don't need to explore more about it in this session. I have 1 more minute left, so I will close with a remark. As critical minerals move to the center of global power dynamics, BRICS has a choice: remain exposed to external choke points or build collective capacity in refining and production. All right, thank you so much for this opportunity. I end my panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarthak. Amazing points. Honestly, these are something which are doable, and these are something which should be there on the agenda for the BRICS presidency. I really like the two models which you proposed: the resource-rich, tech-rich, and the capital-rich, and also the hub and spokes model. I mean, we do have such model for the security architecture. Why can't we have that for the critical minerals? So this is also something which can be taken up. And finally, the three-tier solution or the three-tiered approach which you mentioned for the BRICS presidency, that is definitely something which this task force should be putting up
Right.
to the government. So amazing recommendations, and thank you so much for your short and crisp presentation. Now moving forward
Thank you
with
so
our
much.
last speaker from Russia. We have Melina. Where is she? I can't see her. Yeah.
Good
So
afternoon, good evening.
yeah, over to you, Melina. I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly. Yeah, over to you. Yeah.
Just a second, I will open my presentation. So my name is Milena Grigoryan. I'm from Russia and I'm a researcher at the Center for Multilateral Strategy and Diplomacy. And today I want to talk about Russia's vision for a BRICS plus critical minerals alliance. So the most critical minerals for the energy transition, such as copper, lithium, nickel, and etc., are key components of many rapidly developing clean energy technologies. By 2030, demand for these minerals is expected to nearly triple as the world transition to renewable energy sources to achieve net zero global carbon dioxide emissions by 2050. Russia is a global supplier of a number of metals, and however, approximately 1/3 of strategic minerals are imported into Russia, with some sources entirely from abroad. So Russia processes at least 15 types of rare earth metals, with total reserves across 15 explored deposits exceeded 28 million tons. Currently, less than 2% of the total explored reserves are in commercial use, forcing Russia to import the majority of rare earth metals for the needs of its domestic economy. In 2019, in Russia, a roadmap for development of new materials and substances technologies was approved and aimed at reducing import dependence and enhancing the country's competitiveness in producing high purity materials. The program envisions investments of 100 million rubles with the goal of completely ending reliance on imports on these metals by 2030. Analysis shows that the accession of new members to BRICS will provide control over 72% of global rare earth metal reserves. However, the main challenge lies in generating sufficient domestic demand for strategic minerals, which in Russia remains relatively low. To rectify this situation, it is necessary to accelerate the structural transformation of the domestic economy towards advanced industrial sector and technologies. Russia is interested in the experience of its BRICS counterparts in the exploration of critical mineral deposits and plans to utilize their accumulated expertise, considering of specifics of its own geopolitical structure as a benchmark for developing its own methodologies. Russia's concrete proposals for BRICS Plus. Firstly, in the near future, BRICS countries must identify areas of interstate cooperation that are of interest to all participants. It is important to note that the degree involvement will be determined by the national priorities of each country. BRICS face significant work in harmonizing statistical approaches and methodologies. An important step will be the creation of its own rating agencies. The absence of unified structure, unified methodology for accessing natural resource reserves leads to discrepancies in data and oil, gas, and other resources. Significant discrepancies are also observed in trade data due to use of different commodity classifications. Secondly, it is not enough for countries to have a resource base of critical minerals. They also must possess the technologies for their extraction and deep processing. And here, BRICS countries plan to exchange experiences and jointly develop various methodologies. Coordination among member countries in managing the extraction, processing, and distribution of these resources. And this will enable the creation of independent supply chains, reducing dependence on Western countries and companies. And thirdly, Russia has proposed creating an international coordination platform similar to Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. And for countries Russia has proposed it to countries, for countries involved in the extraction and processing of solid minerals. And in coal mining, BRICS is already a de facto monopoly, controlling over 70% of the resources reserves. As Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, BRICS could stabilize parts of global commodity markets, ensuring sustainable supply, demand, and insurance, and also logistics. The changing technological landscape necessitates the creation of a new structure to manage solid minerals such as platinum group metals, nickel, and etc. So I think that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Milena, for such a wonderful presentation with concrete steps which Russia is trying to put forward under this BRICS framework for critical mineral alliance. You did highlight that there is a need to find out the area for interstate cooperation. National priorities have to be taken care of, as we know that under BRICS there are so many contradictions. So we have to find out, the common ways of working together. So the general consensus seems to be that there has to have some coordinated effort, cooperation, and the way forward. So thank you so much for your presentation. Now we have little over 10 minutes left for the question and answer session. So anyway, so if you have some question, comments, observation, feel free to raise your hand. You can unmute and you can directly interact with the presenter, or you can simply put it in the chat box. Please go ahead. We have 10 minutes left before we end the this roundtable. Yeah. Anyone?
Yes.
All right. I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Please
wanted
go ahead.
to ask a question.
Yes,
Good evening, everyone. My name
yeah, please.
is Ryan Fernandez. I am currently pursuing my master's in international studies. My question would be to Samuel when he spoke about how there is this policy in Indonesia on odd even, and how the country of Indonesia is giving incentives to companies to set up EV manufacturing factories for electric vehicles. So I just wanted to know, does the country also give any assistance to the consumers when it comes to the thing of purchasing electric vehicles, or is the burden just being pushed towards a certain section in the country? Yeah, that's my question.
I think for me, I'll just answer after I gather all the question.
All right. I think there is another question in the chat box. Let me read it out. Given that critical minerals face both cartel risks if producers coordinate and monopoly, I think that's monopoly risk if buyers consolidate, what hedging mechanism can BRICS Plus deploy, such as long-term bilateral offtake agreements, counter-cyclical strategic reserves, or swap arrangements during supply disruption to stabilize market while avoiding accusation of forming a resource cartel? Big question, but it's not addressed to any of the speakers. So, any of you can just share your thoughts on that. And since I don't see much question and we are running short of time, so I would request Samuel, why don't you unmute yourself and answer to the gentleman?
Okay, I will answer the first question. Yeah, we do provide assistance for the consumers. For example, the recharging facility, we are substantiating the number across Indonesia right now, across provinces, not only in Java Island, where many of the EVs are concentrated, but also we're starting to do it in Sumatra Island and others. And then for the consumers also, the electric vehicles are free of tax. So aside from the special plate number where they can access any roads in Jakarta without bound to odd and even policy, we also give them the tax holiday for the consumers, so they do not need to pay any electric vehicle taxes. So they just need to pay the electric vehicle price tag. That's it. And then for the second question, I don't think offtake agreement is something that Indonesia can offer at the moment because we are not allowing any offtake of raw materials, raw nickel that is extracted in our country and then exported abroad. But maybe we can do hedging, for example, like bilateral investment agreement, or let's say I think the industries cooperate or connect the supply chain. For example, if Indonesia need more support in terms of the recharging, India, for example, can supply, and I think it can go through the uh, bilateral trade agreement, or the regional trade agreement between ASEAN and India, because India does not participate in RCEP, in the Regional Comprehensive Energy Partnership, Economic Partnership, RCEP. But yeah, in terms of BRICS, I think if I'm lastly to close, this is why the energy ministers meeting of BRICS are crucial. Right now, BRICS energy ministers meeting, I think I can share the joint statement in the chat box. So they already published it. They have the meeting in May, but we need more synergy between the BRICS economic ministers and the BRICS energy ministers to deliver the priority deliverables on critical minerals, on what to do. How can we move forward? That's it. Because US-led critical minerals partnership established under Biden is no longer working. We need to establish our own.
Thank you so much, Samuel. We have a couple of more questions in the chat box. We have one question by Arushi, which is directed to Melina from Russia. And the question is, as demand for critical minerals rises with the green energy transition, how should countries balance the need for supply security with the risk of new form of resource dependence? Melina, over to you.
Thank you for this question. I think to balance and to solve any problems in the BRICS system, which can be influenced by different type of risks, BRICS countries should anyway create some mechanism to manage such risks and such problems. It should be some long-term agreements between two countries or more than two countries, and it should be like building which mechanism which shared agreed prices for specific projects. And how should countries balance the need for supply security? Yes, I think only by working in such agreementships. I think that's what I can answer now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milena. There's another question by Sanya, which I already read. And there is a long observation by Charu. So thank you, Charu, for such amazing, the feedback which you shared here. But I don't see the question there, so I'm not going to read it out. We have 4 minutes left. If there is some question, now is the time, or else we can just conclude and wrap up the session. So Jia, what do you suggest?
We can wait a minute if we have any more. Yeah, we have a question, Athar.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Yes, Athar.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to thank each and every panelist for their views on the subject. And as previously spoken by the panelists, we already know how China holds dominance in the critical minerals area. So my question is on similar lines only. So how do you think BRICS envision building diversified processing capacity for midstream, speaking specifically about the midstream sector, processing capacity across member states to strengthen collective mineral security rather than shifting dependence from outside of the bloc to within it? I think Sarthak sir or Harsh sir already gave a recommendation regarding that point. If you could just elaborate further, or if any other panelists would like to take it further, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Athar. Over to you, Sarthak.
Thank you, Adha, for the question. So first of all, again, collectively, so many people were trying that, China is the enemy here. We are talking about BRICS. So C in BRICS is China. Remember that. So if they have a lot of refining capabilities, that means BRICS has a lot of refining capabilities. And for them to be collectively pool their resources, they have to be together. BRICS is unfortunately divided in itself. You have to understand that first. And hypothetically, this year or the next year or the next 5 years, BRICS is united and they have the new currency that they have been planning for, I don't know, decades. If they united again and if they want to build a capacity, a joint capacity for pooling their resources and have diversified mineral supply, it it will come through their capital investments and through the NDP infrastructure that they built at the end. They have to come on the table first. Then only these conversation can flow through. But the two ideas that I gave, one is the hub and spoke model and one is the prioritization model. If you combine them both, you can have infrastructure for that. But unfortunately, the geopolitics that is playing is BRICS is divided and will be divided for this year. Till Trump is there, BRICS will be divided.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. We are dealing with the Trump's world. Anyway, we have another question. This is the last question. What strategic steps can BRICS Plus take to build collective refining capacity for critical minerals? Since it is not addressed to any of the panelists, any of you can just, take it up. Yeah, over to the speakers.
First, there needs to be BRICS trade agreement. I think trade agreement is very important because in order for us to enhance the refining capacity, we need the supply chain ecosystem to be built. And so far, according to my experience with BRICS, we're just a talking forum without any concrete mechanism. So ideally, we need a trade agreement, a comic agreement, and I think it will take at least 5 years to negotiate. So yeah, but maybe as a youth, what are the practical steps that we can partake? This is why I've been proposing in Brazil, and Indonesia have been spearheading this in the BRICS youth meeting in Brazil. We need the BRICS Youth Environment Network, and intergovernmentally, aside from the youth context, we need the BRICS Environment Fund or the BRICS Energy Fund or whatever fund. NDB right now, we cannot necessarily just hope that the NDB will operationalize the BRICS integrated currency soon. I'm quite pessimistic on the currency because it needs some global recognition, central bank synergy, so on and so forth. I'm not a finance guy, I cannot explain more about that. But the immediate deliverable that we can, the quick wins that we can secure is financing facility. We have Global Climate Fund. We have the International Renewable Energy Agency. Those are Western-led. How about we create our own BRICS Environment Fund, BRICS Energy Fund? So we can use that funding pool to sponsor BRICS projects across BRICS countries, but it needs contribution. The problem is BRICS is not a charter-based organization like a UN, where we have permanent contribution like what the UN did based on GDP. I don't think we are there yet. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, we need that kind of institutional setting. So the institutionalization of BRICS needs to be strengthened itself. So for us to, not only in energy, across all thematics. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very true. The next step on the list should be institutionalization. It would be good to have a BRICS secretariat. It would be good to have, some sort of written, charter or guidelines, some framework, how BRICS is going to function. But I think due to the internal contradictions and due to the geopolitical environment, even I don't see it getting institutionalized in near future. As per the common currency also, I don't see it, a so-called BRICS currency coming up. We will mostly be dealing bilaterally in the local currencies. That's how it has been working till now, right? So it's a long way ahead. On rhetorics, yes, BRICS has the capability, but is there a political will? Is there, some leadership from BRICS countries which can take this up? I mean, this is a question which can be debated. Since we have already passed the scheduled time, and I see one more question in the chat box. I don't know what to do. Jia, what do you suggest?
It wasn't a question.
We should take up
it
the
was
last.
Just comment.
Okay, so this is the last question. After that, we will not take up any question. This question is by Charu. And okay, so here it is. Good evening, everyone. I am participating as a youth delegate. Question to Samuel. So question is for you, Samuel. Critical mineral extraction often causes ecological damage. What environmental safeguards or regulatory framework should BRICS countries prioritize to ensure responsible and sustainable mining? So over to you, Samuel.
Okay, looks like I'm gonna need my speaker salary now to answer this question. I think what we need is a principle of defining the floor and the ceiling of critical minerals extraction in BRICS countries. We need to agree on that first. We need to know how large can we extract, how much can we utilize. And the next thing is we need, of course, ESG, occupational safety and health, OSH framework. But I think we already have that from the ILO. We already have that from other various multilateral processes. But if BRICS really want to be able to promote environmental safeguard, then we need to leave critical minerals alone. We should not be extracting them because it is environmentally impactful since the beginning. That's why I introduced the concept of efficiency earlier, and also maybe demand-side approaches to control the demand of the critical minerals and decouple the critical minerals development with the economic needs. So we don't need to be over-reliant also with the critical minerals. And if we are reliant on critical minerals, then we need to show how can we make sure that it is industrialized properly and really deliver to the people, which it needs political will. BRICS cannot intervene on that. I have to say it's a domestic authority, your parliament. That's the only thing that can decide on Critical Minerals Act. Unlike the EU, where they are coming to the Critical Minerals Act, I don't think BRICS can do that. But yeah, the thing is synergy, market-based solutions. I think that's another way also for BRICS to intensify our minerals cooperation. And for the environment matters, I think as long as BRICS do not need to create another instrument on environment. I think we can just bring it to the UN where we influence the process. So it'll be our narrative that we set, but for the global community. That's even better because we don't need to duplicate various processes. There are a lot of forums already and conferences, and a lot of those things require budget also. And yeah, how can we create frameworks when BRICS is not even institutionalized properly yet? So that's the thing also. So yeah, I'm sorry that I cannot answer your question directly because there's no solutive solution right now. What there is hopes and expectations.
Very true. What BRICS can do is probably BRICS can magnify the voice. It could be unified and try to bring it to the global forum like United Nations. We should speak the unified force, right? That is the only way out. So again, thank you so much to all the speakers. Please join me in thanking our wonderful speakers, amazing panel discussion. That's the beauty of interacting with the youth leaders. So many new ideas coming up. It is very difficult for me to summarize whatever we discussed, of the last 1.5 hours. But I would say that there is a general consensus that the BRICS Plus need to work together as a consolidated, voice. There is need to have a cooperation, find out the niche area, and then work together. And with that regard, I think your voice matters a lot, and especially now with the India's BRICS presidency and that this BRICS task force, I'm sure that you will be able to put forward all these points very strongly to the MEA, and I'm sure that in the declaration, whatever comes out, there would be some sort of contribution from your end. So all the best for that, and thank you so much for organizing such a timely roundtable. So a huge round of applause from my side to the speakers and to the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Mansi, and thank you so much to all the speakers over here and even all the attendees. It was truly very amazing insights and wonderful insights from each one of you. Thank you so much for being over here, and thank you so much, Professor Mansi, for moderating this amazing session. It couldn't have gone much better. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun interacting and listening to the young voices. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Have a nice evening.